Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Hey, hey, hey. Just right with you here. Yeah, Bigfoot. Bigfoot has birthdays too. And happy birthday, Aaron. I hope you had a great birthday earlier. It was on the 8th, earlier this week. Had a great weather here for it. So I hope it was great weather where you were at. Yeah, I caught your show that morning and you were looking forward to going out and doing a bunch of shoveling. So yeah, you were out in the sun all day. I can see how that happened.
Oh no! Dang it! What a dummy. Hate it when I do this. Okay, let me start over. They couldn't hear me. Let me start over. It was my birthday on the 8th, and he wished me happy birthday as you guys saw. And it was his birthday today, and yes, I did have to do some shoveling. And I hope you liked the happy birthday song. Also, what I was saying was for those of you who are coming from Duke's channel, I am not a researched Bigfoot person. I have not researched Bigfoot. However, I have some opinions on it, but I want to learn from Duke because he does do a lot of this research and he goes out there. And me and Duke talked about how in the spring I'm going to get a bus and I'm going to start gutting it out and rebuilding it. And he said I could come up and do Bigfoot, what do you call it? Bigfoot squatching?
Let's go out and do some Bigfoot research. Nah, I don't really, squatching. That's yeah, no, that's kind of a slang term. But yeah,
Oh,
go out and do some Bigfoot research. Go hang out with the biggies.
yeah, learn a thing or two about a thing or two. Because the only research I've ever done on Bigfoot is one video I made, and it wasn't actually on Bigfoot at all. It was about aliens, and I brought up Bigfoot and chupacabra and fairies and stuff like that when talking about aliens. But it was just some like a quick thing. So because we have people from your show and people from my show, if you don't mind just introducing, I know a lot of people already know about you, but from the people from my channel, tell them what you do. Like, what do you guys get out there and do, and what are you looking for, and maybe start us from like, when did you start getting into Bigfoot, and when was your first encounter? That kind of stuff.
My first encounter was in the second week in February 1972 in Minnesota when I was out sledding. And still not convinced what exactly it was, leaning heavily towards some sub-variety of Bigfoot. But it was extremely terrifying. It was a terrible experience, and have PTSD from it for years afterwards. Matter of fact, I had hysterical amnesia, excuse me, for the first 2 years after the incident. I didn't even remember it happened. So yeah, seeing Bigfoot, not fun. Seeing things that are like potentially worse than Bigfoot, definitely not fun. But so yeah, I didn't go into the woods for years after that. And then I had in 1977 in the summer there was one that was on our yard, and it was sitting in the driveway in the dark, waiting for me to walk into it. Which again
Mm, creepy.
reminded me that there's these things out there that aren't supposed to be there. People aren't talking about them, and apparently I can't avoid them by staying at the house and not going in the woods because, well, here's one on the yard. So then I had started doing research on it. So ever since then, I've been doing research on it. Just basically started out for the sake of self-preservation. What are these things? How am I supposed to like not get killed by one? That would be kind of handy information to have. And then just kind of went from there. And I've done research in many states all over the country, five or six at least, not even just right off the top of my head. Some of these guys would be like, "Oh, I've done research in 30 states." Okay, did you find the same thing in all 30 states? Yeah. Well, I found the same thing in all 6 states, so there you go. Maybe I don't need to do 50 states. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I've been at it for like, over 40 years. 75 is when I started actually doing any archive work or looking into reading stories or what are these things out in the woods. So technically, it could count from 75. So that'd be 45 years.
I'm supposed to ask you what you nicknamed the very first one you saw.
Mr. Smiley. I was trying to send her a picture of Mr. Smiley to put up on the screen, and we couldn't get things set up in time.
I should have called earlier. Next time. Next time. Or you can send Mr. Smiley and I'll post him up on my community channel.
Yeah, like nobody's gonna want to see that. No one wants to
It's
see that.
it's a decent picture then, huh?
No, it's not a picture. It's a
Oh.
mock-up. I was,
Oh,
out
like a
sledding
drawing.
kid, 10-year-old kid, 72, not carrying cameras around.
Okay. Well, I was
But
wondering
it's
how
a
that happened.
very accurate mock-up. It's too accurate.
Okay.
If
I still want
it
to
was
see
any
that
more
then.
accurate, I couldn't look at it.
Okay, so you got the guts to go back out and do this though. So what happened to change your decision on going from being scared to go in the woods to actually going out and looking for this stuff or these
Oh,
characters
I
or
was still
creatures?
scared to go in the woods. I just went lightly armed like Rambo. Uh, yeah, for a long time, I wouldn't go very far from the house. Maybe a few hundred yards out in the woods. That was it. And then I just started, go out in the woods with people that are heavily armed, and finally go out in the woods by myself, heavily armed, and then go out in the woods maybe not quite so heavily armed, and just kind of got used to it. But it took a long time to get enough information on these things to the point where I felt comfortable going into areas where they were likely to be there and doing any research on them or anything. And a lot of it was that I started that whatever Bigfoot wasn't the same thing that I saw, or at least what I saw was some kind of a peculiar subvariety that wasn't nearly as common as the regular ones are. So then that got me interested in the regular old Bigfoot, which is what I've mainly been doing research on. The other ones are like hard to research because they'll eat you. So how are you? You're not going to be having any Jane Goodall moments with them. Let's just say so that makes research a lot more difficult, unless you're going in there with like a small army, and you just want to kill one and get DNA. Then you might be able to do something. But other than that, can't really research them.
Do you think anyone has done that? Has anyone gotten and killed one and gotten any DNA or even knocked one
Uh,
out or
well, yeah. As far as the DNA thing goes, we've already got Bigfoot's DNA sequenced and listed at ZooBank. Melba Ketchum did the DNA genome study. So that's already done and over with. She had over 100 samples, hair samples, all kinds of different tissue samples. Was it one of the guys down in New Mexico, actually, Rob Kreider, actually gave her a toenail that he had gotten off of one of them. So, yeah, they had plenty of DNA evidence from all over the place. They had multiple labs tested, blind studies. It all came back the same thing. It's mitochondrial DNA, human, nuclear DNA unknown. So they're hybrids of us and something else.
like Nephilim type of creature maybe?
We got Nephilim DNA for them to compare it to, then we would know for sure.
Right. So,
Nobody has Nephilim DNA. Unless you've got giant bones. And by the way, some people have them.
mhm.
And they've also been, trying to get them tested too. to see if it's, is it just human DNA really big or. But the problem is most of the time when they find any of these giant bones or anything, they're so old and they're in such a state of desiccation, you probably can't pull DNA out of them. And we never get a chance to do it because as soon as they find giant bones, the Smithsonian gets involved and goes, "Oh, we want
Mm-hmm.
to take those for further study," and then they get lost mysteriously and are
Yep.
never seen again.
I know L.A. Marzulli has some skulls. Maybe we can ask him if he's done any DNA testing.
I think they DNA tested those, didn't they?
We probably
I
did.
think that was. I think it was already done.
Well, I
I'm
just
not
don't.
up to speed on LA and
Neither
what's
am
going
I.
on with all the Paracas skulls and the conehead giants and stuff. I don't pay that much attention to that.
Well, I've
I'm
wondered.
more busy chasing around the giants that still exist, not the ones that are dead in the ground.
I've wondered because doesn't it seem like they have the ability to kind of blur themselves from photos or even disappear?
Oh, oh yeah, definitely. One of the things that we've been able to narrow down on that is that their hair is hollow. And a bunch of people I know have had hair samples, and one of them I was actually talking to them on the phone. They pulled out their hair sample and tried this, and there was wheeze and yays of delight as they found out I wasn't kidding. But if you take a Bigfoot hair sample and you put it in fairly decent light conditions up next to something, it will assume the color of the thing it's next to, which is a really neat trick for breaking up your outline when you're, part of you's in shade and part of you's up in the sun. The part of you that's in the sun will take on the color of whatever it's next to. If it's next to a tree or a bush or whatever. So it's really easy for them naturally to blend in with things. And unlike the T Rex in Jurassic Park, which they erroneously said only react to movement, and they've since been able to do more research on that, and they don't think that's true. Humans do only react to movement. And I've tried this out myself, and you don't have to be in camouflage outfit. You can have nice bright colors on. Just stand still. Humans walk right past you. They don't notice you.
Okay, so I've listened to some encounters with uh, Bigfoot. Not a lot. Okay, I'll remind everybody. I don't. I am not researched on this. Duke is, so that's why I asking him the questions. But in a lot of the encounters that I've heard, they talk about Bigfoot smelling like death and decay or sulfur.
Hmm.
Do you find that to be like? Have you ever gotten close enough to smell them?
Oh, I've been around them dozens of times. Definitely close enough to smell them. They were up next to my tent like at least twice, probably closer to 5 times last summer. Um, I've only ever had a strong smell from him one time, and he smelled like a rotting meat locker.
Hmm.
But that was early in the spring when he was high up on the mountain. There wasn't any water source nearby to wash himself off in, and him and his clan were hunting deer all the time. Because I was about 150 yards away from where they had their ambush spot, and I could hear them getting into position every night. Well, not every night, about 3 nights a week when they were going to catch a deer. And so, yeah, early spring, no veggies to eat. They're subsisting on deer. When they eat it, they spill all over themselves, goes all over their hair, then they can't wash it off. Then they smell like rotting meat. So, yeah, that guy stank really bad. But in general, they don't have any smell. That's false. Anybody that says, oh, Bigfoot's around because they stink, no, they don't have any smell at all. Their actual natural smell when they're not agitated is that they smell kind of like a dirty, wet dog mixed with an electrical fire, but it's not really an intense smell. When they are agitated, and we're not sure if it's like armpit sweat or if they have glands that do it or whatever, but they can put off a terrible stank that's like somewhere between a skunk and a bunch of rotting meat, basically.
Okay, so my very minimal researched opinion starts to think that maybe there could be a demonic presence with some of these creatures, especially if they have that putrid being the often the word that I'll hear smell that they can give off. And the reason I say that is because you say is some of not all some of these experiences are terrifying, and there's some really bad ones out there, is from what I
Yeah,
understand.
just like humans, there's some experiences with humans that are really terrifying, and there's some really bad ones out there.
Which would
They're
again be
50%
another.
human, remember? Yeah. And as far as
Demons are
stinky
affected by
things being
demons.
bad, skunks are stinky. Are they demonic?
Well, they don't have the smell of like the putrid death and rotting meat like you say.
Oh, neither. Yeah, neither does Bigfoot usually. They smell like more like a rotting skunk or armpit smell.
Mm.
Like I said, the one that I smelled probably smelled like that because they were busy eating nothing but deer. They didn't have any options, and there wasn't any river or anything nearby to wash himself off in. So it tends to build up, and you get stinky.
Okay, so
Plus, he was also no doubt highly agitated because he was about 20 feet from my tent grabbing a couple pork chops that I left for him.
so okay, it's your opinion that there's no demonic nature in them, even if they're really creepy, even though bad
No, not
humans
my
can.
opinion. Let me give you the opinion of a better source. Dave the
Okay.
Deliverer, who was one of the 6 exorcists that cleaned out the White House before Trump went in there. He had an experience with the Bigfoot where he was night fishing in a little pond. He had hip waders and the
Oh, he warned me that we would have these freezing moments. Just hang on. I think he'll come back. Just give us a second. Duke warned me that this would happen, and I forgot. I should have prayed for it ahead of time. So, Lord, I pray for a clean and clear stream, and that this would reconnect without any hassle. In Jesus' name, amen. Uh-oh. Oh, we disconnected. Why does my nose always itch when I'm live? It's one of the worst things. Let's try this again. My nose always itches when I'm live. Oh, Brian's not online. He must have lost his connection. Okay, what I can try to do is give him a call. The problem with that is I'm going to have to call him and put him up to the speaker, and you guys are going to have to tell me if you can hear him if we do it that way. But I may try this one more time. Golly. Try one more time. Of course, we get into a good subject and this is what happens. Okay, let's give him a call. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I guess that works. I'll have to hold the phone up like this. Oh, the computer crashed.
computer crashed. Trying to get it to restart. No guarantees.
Okay, well, I have you on speaker, and everyone can tell me if they can hear you decently or not. So go ahead. You were saying about the person. You have to start over with the story about the. I said there might be a demonic presence, or it was your opinion, and you said no, you had a better opinion from someone else.
Yeah, I got an opinion from Dave the Deliverer, who was in deliverance ministries all of his life, and he did about 3,000 exorcisms, as the Catholics would call it, during the course of his career. And at one point, he was out night fishing, and he had his hip waders and his little rubber ring floaty thing on. He was floating around a pond out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, which had good fishing during the day, but he probably shouldn't have been out there at night. And this is down toward Texas, so I can't remember if it was in Texas or not, but something showed up in the wood line and started shaking the mesquite trees. And if you know about mesquite trees, it's not very easy to shake a mesquite tree. And he had already had a Bigfoot sighting before, so he kind of had an idea, but he didn't know for sure what it was. So he immediately defaulted to, there's some demons there, they're going to attack me, and he started doing an exorcism.
Okay.
And he was very surprised when it did absolutely nothing, but it did make him more mad.
Oh.
And then he realized that, oh, these aren't demons. They're Bigfoot over here. I'm in their fishing hole. And
Okay.
he immediately stopped what he was doing and he went, oh, okay, hey, it's you guys. I'm getting off your pond now. Just calm down. I'm leaving. And he started kicking his way back towards shore, and he got out of the water and jumped in his truck and bailed out of there.
So,
from a
was he a Catholic?
as professional of an exorcist as you could get, accidentally tried exorcising some Bigfoot.
Was he a
Did not
Catholic
work.
exorcist? Was he a Catholic?
No.
Okay. Well, because that would make a difference, probably. Okay, well, they said they can hear you, so that's good. And so I have a question, if you wouldn't mind explaining to me, what is a cryptid?
Cryptid is any animal that's unknown to science. It has not been designated officially by science yet as a cryptid. So the panda was a cryptid. The giant squid was a cryptid. A lot of these animals that were like presumed to maybe exist and then finally proven to exist. It took them about 100 years from the time that they had, reports there was a panda until they actually had a dead specimen to look at to prove there was a panda. And you know who found the panda for them? Two of Teddy Roosevelt's kids.
Huh.
Yeah, they had to go shoot it because nobody could go shoot a panda. Pandas are slow and dumb, and they don't hide very well, and they live at a certain altitude and only eat a certain kind of bamboo that only grows at a certain altitude. And so you would think they would be really easy to find because they don't try and hide themselves. They're only in a certain areas and with certain kinds of vegetation at certain altitudes. So pretty easy to find, right? Bigfoot are trying to hide themselves, and they're just as smart as us. That's why we don't have one.
Okay. So what about, isn't there something like the pre-Adamite talk too? Because you said Gary Wayne said something about that, and I've never asked him about. Well, I mean, I kind of asked him about Bigfoot one time, but I don't think we went very far with it. And did you say that they could be related to a pre-Adamite creature?
Well, I've had Gary on my show a couple times, and the first time he was on, we were talking about Bigfoot, and the second show I had him on, the topic came around again, and I kind of pinned him down a little bit more, and he said he's leaning toward pre-Adamite on Bigfoot, which is exactly where I'm leaning on.
Okay. Because I don't know anything about some of that stuff, but I thought cryptids was specific to the Bigfoot or maybe even the little people, but you say it's like all of those. The squid.
No, it's any animal that isn't a known designated species is a cryptid. It's been reported to exist. Maybe somebody's got a picture of it. They don't have any samples of it. They don't have a dead specimen, so it's like it's on the iffy list. That's basically what cryptids are.
Okay, so if I wanted to go out and try to find a Bigfoot, what's the best? Is almost any forest a good forest?
No, there's a lot of specific things to look for, which is why just, Joe Average can't go out and find a Bigfoot. You have to know what kind of terrain and stuff that they're generally looking for. That being said, they can exist almost anywhere. They're incredibly durable and tough. They're insensitive to temperature extremes. They don't seem to need shelters very much, except really brutal weather. They'll go on, under a rock overhang or in a cave or something like that, wherever they've got their regular shelter set up at. But as far as finding a Bigfoot, I always default to when I was in the Shaolin School of Sasquatching, and Master Po told me, "Grasshopper, you cannot find Bigfoot. Bigfoot must find you."
Right, that's kind of what
literally true. The more you look for them, the less you're going to find them. You got to go to an area where you're reasonably sure that they're already around there, and then just go there and hang out and camp a lot. And if you want to wander off in the woods and find some of their tree structures and tracks and take pictures and then, like ooh and ah over them, because they watch you the whole time you're out there. If you're in an area where they're around, don't ever think they're not watching you, because they are. They got at least one member of their little clan watching you the whole time you're there.
But they generally leave people alone, I would think, because hardly anybody ever has encounters with them, right?
That's exactly right. Their whole objective is to not let us know that they're there and not let us see them. That being said, they also realize that they're very closely related to us, and we're like really entertaining. And think about it. You live out in the woods and you just do, natural things and eat natural plants and animals and stuff like that. And then these weird little things with clothes on show up in the woods with all these weird gadgets and stuff and start making weird noises. So, hell yeah, we're entertaining. I can't even tell you how many times I hear reports from people like, "There's Bigfoot. I saw Bigfoot looking in my window." Well, what were you doing? Well, I was just sitting there watching TV. Well, so was he.
I was going to say...
We're their entertainment. We are Bigfoot's television. We are their entertainment. So if you're out in an area regularly, you're very entertaining. You're showing up again. If you're doing something out of the ordinary, that's, even better. You're sitting there playing a guitar by the campfire, singing a song or something. Woohoo, you're entertaining them. They'll show up for that.
Well, I would think so, because there's so obviously... I would guess that there's more of us than them, maybe not. But since there's so many...
there's way more of us than there is of them. I mean, we haven't got any kind of a census on it or anything, but just the carrying capacity, what the wilderness can sustain for creatures that big that need that many calories, there just can't be a gigantic number of them. That being said, there's more of them than most people think there are.
Well, there's plenty of forests that people don't go to, and it's
Oh,
not.
exactly. We got 24 million acres of forest right here in western Montana. That's in one state, 52 mountain ranges.
Yeah. Well, I go up into Red Lodge, and there's massive amounts of areas where nobody goes. You could just see across where you hike and where you camp. You can see across the way just so many trees and no trails that there could be dozens of animals in there. You'd never know it. There's too many trees to even see anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you got well, when I was up in Coloma, I like to take that long shot from the top of Coloma over to the mountain ranges. The third mountain range away from it on a nice clear day, you can easily see it in the pictures, and that's over 30 miles away. And in between there and that furthest mountain range, there's one road, and it's down in the valley 9 miles away, and there's a little gas station and a couple other buildings there. And that's it. And that's it. This is civilization in Montana. You're looking across 30 miles of mountains and forests, and there's one little road with humans in it. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take long. You could easily get lost even on a decent trail around here. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. How often do you hear about or know about people getting hurt, injured, or killed by Bigfoot creatures?
Oh, it happens. Not all that commonly. There's some people out there like Dave Pilates who's missing 411 books that he doesn't come right out and say Bigfoot's doing it, but if you're at a conference where he's talking, then he'll say it. But he's leans heavily in that direction because there's a lot of people that go disappear in parks, and there's not really a valid explanation of where they're going. And how did they just mysteriously disappear and they're never seen again? But then you've also got the flip side of that, of people that disappear and then show up again mysteriously, like the little kid out in I think it was in the Carolinas, that wandered off into the woods, and it was in the 30s and raining, and he was out in the woods for 3 days, and then suddenly they found him a very short distance from an area they had already checked that wasn't that far away from where he had wandered off from. And he wasn't freezing and super cold or anything. He seemed to be just fine. And he said a bear had taken care of him and brought him back again.
Oh, and it
Well,
could have not been a bear,
further
obviously.
research in this area, and I did the research on it, there hasn't been an actual bear sighting in that county for over 30 years. So, yeah, this would be a real magical bear.
Yeah, well, of course a bear wouldn't do that anyway. It's not in their nature at all.
No kidding. Yeah, well, we know that, but a lot of these people that live in concrete canyons haven't got a clue. And again, this is in a county where they haven't had a bear sighting for 30 years, so they're more willing to believe this Bravo Sierra than most apparently are.
Bravo
and this is
Sierra.
all over the mainstream media on the East Coast too, about this kid going missing, and they found him again, and he said a bear saved him.
Yeah, well, to him, that's all you could probably imagine it could be too. Plus, there's also this this very much cognitive dissonance or confirmation bias or whatever you want to call it, or just the fact that we really don't believe these things, and that would really push our belief system into an uncomfortable place. Also called it a paradigm shift if you allow it, but it pushes that comfort level for some people because they don't want to believe that could possibly be true, even though there's a lot of people that think it's fun to research this, but if they ever actually came toe to toe with a creature, I wonder if they would still believe it or if they would not, because I think a lot of people like to research ghosts and aliens too, but they're not sure how much they really believe what they're running into when they run into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree with you there, and that's what happens to us. The preponderance of the Bigfoot researchers that are involved in this aren't involved in it because they think there might be a Bigfoot. They're involved in it because they've already seen one, and they usually didn't believe there was such a thing when they saw one. And that's what prompted them to get involved in it and start doing more research. Because, I've seen this thing. It's real. What's going on here? Why don't we know these things are real? And then they start running into tons of other people that have seen them and know they're real. And they start realizing there's, just the reported sightings in North America, we've got 15,000, and that's reported. Think about how many people have had sightings that aren't going to go bother to waste their time making a report on it. Probably 10 times as many. So there's 150,000 recently in North America.
In your videos that I've watched, you show a lot of pictures of bowed branches in an X shape. Could you explain to me some of what that means and what they're doing when they're moving, not branches, excuse me, full on trees? Could
Yeah,
could you
we're
explain?
not sure what some of it means. Some of it we figured out. They're markers. It's just like if you make a trail marker, you leave a road sign and say go this way. It's their version of the same thing. So right now we're trying to decipher what all of it means. We've got some of it figured out. We know like snaps and smaller tree snaps and branch snaps and stuff. They just habitually do that to mark the trails that they use regularly. And they're not dumb like regular deer where they walk down the same trail and it's a trail and you can see it's a trail. To them, a trail is something about 15 feet wide. And they're going to walk somewhere in there, but they're not going to walk the same place the last whatever went through their left. So they don't leave a beaten path usually. When you do find that, it's like back from a road somewhere.
Yeah, and well, go ahead. You weren't done.
Arches and stuff. We're not exactly sure what arches are. X's seem to be territorial markers because you usually find the majority of those in areas that has a lot of Bigfoot presence around. And it could be because there's enough of them there that there's like more than one group of them, so they have to mark this is our territory, that's your territory, and keep track of it. And we think the alpha males are the ones that are constructing the huge X markers, and they're doing that as like a display of their size and strength. I'm so big I can make an X marker 6 stories tall. You don't want to come in here and challenge me.
Okay. So sometimes they might be a welcome and sometimes they're like a stay away, perhaps.
It means both. It's just like this is our territory.
Okay.
And the reason it's gigantic is because this is who's running this territory. Play nice.
Yeah. Okay. Have you?
Now, I've heard from other people that are actually interact with the Bigfoot that their take on it is that it's like if it's on the ground, it's a welcome sign. If it's standing up, it's a territorial marker.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you think they run around with any of the other creatures, like some of the little people, or are they?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got reports of them interacting and being seen in the same place at the same time. And there was I think it was a Blackfoot Indian. I'm not sure which tribe he was from, but he was here in our area, and this is a long, long time ago. Like, maybe before white man was here. But he was out hunting with a party, and he was one of the younger guys in the group. And everybody was asleep. The older guys were all snoring up a storm and, making too much noise. He couldn't sleep. He started hearing this conversation from outside their camp going, well, who's out there talking? Everybody's in here sleeping. So he went sneaking out and snuck up over this little rise and was looking down at this little glade. And there was some moonlight on it so he could see what was going on down there. And there was a dead elk. And there was a Bigfoot on one side of it, and there was 2 little people on the other side of it. And apparently they were having a discussion over whose elk it was.
Oh.
And he was very surprised when Bigfoot kind of huffed and turned around and left in disgust after the discussion was over with. And one of the 2 little people just turned around and left the clearing, and the other one threw the elk's head over its shoulder and proceeded to drag the carcass off.
Did it seem like a language that was a language?
Oh, yeah, they can speak. They have their own language.
Do you think that sometimes it's more than one language? Because I think about the little people and I'm like thinking they have, maybe it's all the same language or it could be different and yet they still understand each other.
I'm not sure if it is. Yeah, I'm not sure. One of the guests that I had on was Crow Native, and her great uncle actually interacted with the little people a couple of times, and he could talk to them because he was one of the elders in the tribe, and he understood their original language, which isn't being used anymore. And these little guys were speaking to him in the original language, and he was only picking up about 2/3 of their words. But it was enough to speak to him in. And then after the first time he talked to him, he started thinking about it. He's like, nobody in our tribe has really been using that language for about 100 years. How old are these guys exactly?
Oh, that's a good
question. And that
question.
really kind of creeped him out, yeah. It's like, why? If you're still hanging around listening to us talk and stuff, we're using a different language now. Why are you guys still using it? And some of the words were, he didn't even recognize. They were like so antiquated, or they were part of their language or something. He didn't know. But about 1/3 of the words they were saying, he didn't even understand them. But again, they were friendly with him. The first time he met with them, he gave them a can of peaches to eat, which apparently they thought that was the best thing ever. And then in the winter, he got snowed in and couldn't get out for about a week. He couldn't even hardly get his door open because it was just cram-packed snowed in. This is up in the Bighorn Mountains. and he heard a knock on his door. He's like, "Oh, I'm up in the mountains, snowed in. There's nobody out there knocking on my door. What's going on?" And he tried to shove the door open a little bit so he could see, and he could peek out over the top of the snowbank, and there was a dead deer laying there. Okay, well, there's a dead deer here. How convenient. I'm out of food. So he drags the deer into the cabin, and he proceeds to gut it out and everything. And he's looking at it like, what killed this thing? I don't want to eat some diseased deer, even if I kind of have to. It seemed perfectly healthy, and when he was cleaning it, he found out that it had been shot in the heart with a little arrow about 8 inches long. It was still stuck in its heart, and so it killed it.
Mhm. So does that make you think that maybe there was a time where humans and Bigfoot or some of these other creatures lived side by side if they're speaking an old language that the tribe used to know or
Yeah,
speak?
they do. We've got an oral tradition from some of the tribes in the Pac West, further west of us, that they used to have a designated member of their tribe that knew the Bigfoot's language that would go out and do trade with them and would bring them baskets and stuff because their fingers are too big and they couldn't make baskets and stuff very well, but they really liked baskets. And then the Bigfoot would bring them something else that they couldn't readily get, good stone for making arrowheads or, some other stuff that they found that humans, had trouble finding or something. They'd bring it and trade it with them. And that whole thing sounds like it kind of came to a halt quite a while back, right about the time the white man got on the continent. So it may have been the pandemic going around that all the natives were getting. It's possible that the people in the tribe that actually knew the language and were the one designated guy to go interact with them died. So there wasn't anybody left to do it anymore.
Okay. Oh, geez. So, it's possible that these creatures are living over 100 or more years. That's what you're kind of intimating, I think, right?
The little people, even the legends and stuff, lean heavily toward they live a ridiculously long time. Bigfoot probably lived about the same amount of time we do.
Oh, okay. Bigfoot lives the same amount of time as us, but the little people live a lot longer. And so, since we're
Yeah.
really not interacting with them anymore, that's why they're still.
Interact off and on with the little people where they were at. They still have interactions with them. So that's a different story. That's not the Bigfoot thing.
The Crow Indians?
Mm-hmm.
Are
They're
they the
friends
only
with the little
ones?
people. They're the only tribe that's friends with them. That's why
Really?
they're not extinct. Yeah. Well, think about how big the Crow tribe is, and then think about the fact that they're enemies with the Sioux and the Blackfoot and pretty much everybody else around them that are really warlike and really huge. And why are the Crow not extinct? The little people are the reason the Crow aren't extinct.
That's
Because the
curious.
other tribes tried raiding into their territory. Well, the Sioux did. The Sioux sent a raiding party of 250 warriors into the Crow territory to stomp them out once and for all. And they wiped out one village, and then they were working there. They're going toward the second village, and it got to be dark, so they set camp up, which unfortunately for them was right next to the Pryor Mountains, where the little people have their underground civilization, according to the Crow. So shortly after dark, the Sioux raiding party started hearing the sound of their horses panicking and screaming. And so they went running out there, and the guys that went to check the horses got massacred immediately. What was going on is little people were killing all their horses so they couldn't get away. And then the little people proceeded to kill all of them.
Uh-huh.
Now, they weren't completely thorough in this undertaking in that out of the 250 Sioux raiders that came into their territory, apparently 11 of them survived and walked back again. But they presumed that the little people thought they were dead and left them for dead. And then they just weren't quite dead. And they managed to walk back into Sioux territory without their horses and told them that let's not do that again. It was a bad idea. Well, I got this story from the Crow, first of all, and they gave me their side of the story from what they knew about it. And then I got a confirmation from somebody in the Sioux tribe that they have the same exact story, and they had the exact numbers of how many actual warriors had been killed. They had the actual numbers down to the exact numbers. Yeah, there was 250, 11 came back. Okay, and here's what happened. The Crow didn't know what happened. The Sioux knew what happened. The survivors, the rest of them. The Crow just found all the dead Sioux there and went, ew.
Yeah.
What did this?
And the Pryor Mountains are really close to where I live. Like I'm only maybe 40 minutes, I think. Maybe
Mm.
maybe 45 minutes from the Pryor Mountains. And they're
Yeah, it's
pretty.
just about like what, southwest of you a little bit?
Yeah. You just had, yes, and there's a big huge dam up there too.
Yeah.
Isn't that where that?
Yeah, and if you notice, there's like no real roads going into the Pryor Mountains for
There
some bizarre
isn't.
reason.
There isn't. There's like one main road that goes into the Pryor Mountains, and you don't hear about people going, "I'm going hiking in the Pryors today." Like they don't. They go to Red
Nope.
Lodge instead.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason.
That's curious because yeah, like Red Lodge is further than the Pryor Mountains by maybe a few minutes. But even if they were the exact same or even if the Pryors were a little further, people don't talk about going to the Pryors to hike and hang out. They're always going to Columbus, like Absaroka area, or Red Lodge, or Nye, any East Rosebud, West Rosebud, all in the Beartooth Mountains. People just aren't going to the Pryors. Not that I know of. Maybe people down in Wyoming do go up and hunt in the Pryors. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if that's considered tribal land or not, which could have something to do with it. I know the natives won't go on it unless they bring offerings with. Like you got to give them bribes in order to be on their territory successfully and not tick them off. So they bring them some chewing tobacco or some little sweet treats or something that they leave for them, and here's your bribe, don't kill us. We need to go through your territory. Sorry about that. But that's sort of their attitude is like you don't even go in there unless you really have to, and then you got to bribe them just to make sure they don't get mad about it.
And what would you bribe them with, do you suppose?
Yeah, good luck. I don't know.
Yeah.
From what I hear around here, the natives are way more scared of the little people than they are of the Bigfoot. They tell you if you see Bigfoot tracks, don't follow them very far. You might think you're trying to hunt them. But if you see little person tracks, leave the area immediately.
Well, aren't a lot of them tricksters and stuff? Don't they kidnap children?
In some areas they do that. I don't think they do that around here. The little people around here are like one step up a hostile scale from the Pukwudgies, which means they're, unless you're a member of the Crow tribe and you're like somehow made friends with them, you shouldn't have anything to do with them whatsoever. They supposedly have super strength, which, verifies with the story of the brave that's on dragging off the dead elk carcass. You got a little 18-inch guy throws an elk's head over its shoulder and drags the carcass off by itself. That's super strength. The other report that I got from the old uncle that was up there in the Bighorns that had him save him, bring him a deer. When he was interacting with them, he said they could just do things like super speed. They could go super fast. They'd just be a blur.
Like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Exactly. Or, like the old cartoons where the Roadrunner would go beep, beep, and there'd just be a cloud of dust, that sort of thing. You could barely even see where they were going because they were moving so fast. It was a blur. But, they got super strength, they got super speed, they work together in groups, and they're known to use traps and poisoned weapons. You want to go fight that?
No. No, I don't have any interest in really running into Bigfoot either, but when I get my bus, I'd still come camp out with you and check it out because, like you said, you're not going to find them unless they want you to. So
if you just go camp in our spot, we've already been up there for 4 or 5 years hanging out with them, so they're used to us, and they know we don't have weapons, or we're not hunting or hostile, or we do have weapons. They see us walking around with battle axes and swords, but it's like that's not scary to a Bigfoot.
But if you had a gun, they might consider that.
A gun is something they would be alarmed at. Yeah. That's the kind of thing you shouldn't be toting around if you want to have friendly relations with them anyway. If you just, if you want to walk around the woods and find structures and tracks, carry a bazooka, who cares? If you want them to be anywhere near you or get anywhere near you, then being armed to the teeth is not going to accomplish that.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'd want to be near one or not. I'm not sure yet. I'd certainly pray about it, that's for sure. That's my first go-to would be to pray. Is this a good idea? But I'm excited to travel.
I know actually a bunch of Bigfoot researchers that are really staunch Christians, and they pray up before they even go out and do their research.
Good. I think because obviously God is in control of everything, and so it's certainly not going to hurt to pray protection and that sort of thing, especially in the unknown. And I know
that works for everything, including the known. Look, a grizzly can't hurt a hair on your head unless he has permission. None of it can hurt you unless it has permission.
Good point. That's right. That's a good point. Even the little people.
Yep, they can't hurt you either if they don't have permission. But the thing, the thing with those little guys is just stay out of their territory and don't try and interact with them is your best bet. I've run across their tracks before. I saw 3 of their little tracks when I was down at the base of the cliff in Coloma, and there was a slag pile from the old mine down there, and one had been cut diagonally across it, left 3 little tracks, and they were just like the size of a human toddler tracks, but thinner and moccasins. So, it's not, there's nobody with their little toddler down there in the middle of nowhere letting them walk across the slag pile. The kid wouldn't be old enough to even stand up if their feet were that little. So I just left the area immediately.
Oh. Bubba says, I wonder if they can mask themselves like cloaking within their environment.
Bigfoot or little people?
He just said them. But you could
Them.
you could say, yeah, what about Bigfoot? Can they do that?
Yeah, the legends of the little people is that they definitely can turn themselves invisible. I've heard that connected to just about every type of little people in every continent.
You don't suppose they're jumping through portals or something?
That's exactly what I'm leaning toward. I don't know if they can actually turn themselves physically invisible or if they can just step through the veil so you can't see them. And that could be what Bigfoot does in some cases, but I think they can actually, they've got some kind of a cloaking trick that has something to do with their hair that they're pulling. Because we've got pictures of them in various stages of cloaking, where they're like partially cloaked, or part of them is cloaked and part of them isn't, or part of them's blending in, you can see part of them and the other part's just like isn't there. So it's really weird stuff. We don't know exactly how they're doing it. All we know is the trick they can do with their hair. That's a physical trick. We don't know what other what we would consider to be paranormal tricks that they have up their sleeve, but we know that some of them definitely have them, and it seems like some of the Bigfoot basically don't really seem to have any kind of paranormal abilities, and other ones exhibit all kinds of weird, strange, things that they seem to be capable of doing. So, from the people that I've talked to that actually interact and talk to them, they say that it's your troop teaches you. So whatever tricks your troop knows, that's what you learn. So it's like being part of a kung fu school. If you're not part of the kung fu school, you don't learn that style. So some of the kung fu schools don't have any tricks, and some of these Bigfoot kung fu schools have lots and lots of tricks. It all depends on where you grew up and which clan you're with.
I wonder why they would have access to paranormal capabilities like that. Maybe it's their bloodline?
My impression from what they say is that we have access to them too. We just don't learn anything. Oh. Nobody teaches us those tricks when we're little kids, so we don't know how to do it.
Oh, they use portals and stuff, and disappearing and cloaking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Apparently some of that stuff is stuff we could do too if we knew how to do it, but we don't know how to do it. Nobody will teach us, and they're definitely not going to teach us.
Well, there's some that will teach it, but I think the people that are trying to teach that kind of stuff are generally on the Luciferian hermetic alchemy side of things.
Yeah, no, that's a completely different thing. No, we want to learn how the Bigfoot are doing these things and what their little trick is,
Yeah.
And it's hard to get a straight answer out of them. I know somebody that actually talks to him, and I asked her, I said, the next time you talk to him, ask him a question for me. How do you cloak?
Do you think they
I've already
understand?
tried to get an answer to this, and I got the answer back about 3 days later, and she said, well, it's about what I expected, and you're probably not going to like it. And I go, okay, what did they say? Well, we cloak by bending the light. Okay, well, thanks, Captain Obvious. We already knew that. We've got a picture of one of them doing it up in Coloma. You could see the whole light field bending around something that was right next to the person with the camera. So, yeah, okay. Obviously they bend light. But thanks for not telling us how your little trick was accomplished.
How you do it. We have a couple questions for you. Somebody says, what about the orbs around when Bigfoot is around?
That's a great question. Some of the things, I've never seen an orb around Bigfoot. I've been around Bigfoot so much, it's like retarded how much I've been around Bigfoot. And I've never seen an orb around them. And I think it might have to do with the location, because they like to be around areas where there's portals and stuff like that. And, of course, those areas will also attract other things. So you'll have dogman and orbs and all kinds of weird stuff in the same area that the Bigfoot are in. Most of the areas I go to and do Bigfoot research, as far as I know, there isn't any portals or anything around there, and I never see any of this other stuff connected with them. And they're they're there, but none of the other stuff is there. And some people think that some of these littler entities don't have, I don't know how to describe it exactly, they don't have enough energy to open a portal. so they can't open one by themselves. And they cluster on the other side of the portals and wait for something big to open up and come through to our side, and then they jump through while it's open.
Huh. Okay. Another question. It's about the Skinwalker Ranch, and apparently there's a Bigfoot there. Now, here's my understanding. Skinwalker is pure evil. It's not doing anything good for anyone. So, I don't know exactly what we're dealing with the Skinwalker, but is there a Bigfoot that hangs out on the Skinwalker Ranch that you know about?
Skinwalkers are evil, yeah. Well, anything that there could be Bigfoot around, there's portals there. Anywhere where there's portals, you can, there's probably Bigfoot there, and there's probably every other kind of weird thing there too. So, I know Skinwalker Ranch isn't the only Skinwalker Ranch. There's a bunch of places like that in the U.S. They're just not well known or talked about. Some of the people that have these places don't talk about them at all. They're doing research on them. They live there. And I know of northern Florida, there's 3 of them. There's 3 areas like that. And the government's available. One of them is keeping it staked out and has told the owners of it, don't go out in the woods at night at all. And don't go out in the woods during the day unless you're armed.
With the Skinwalker, you wouldn't even know if it was coming. You couldn't.
Yeah, well, Skinwalkers don't need portals or anything. Those are native witches, is what they are. Skinwalkers make a deal with the devil. They kill one of their beloved relatives in order to get the abilities that they have to quote-unquote skinwalk, which is essentially shape-changing into some sort of an animal or human-animal mixed form that they can use to perform their evil deviltry that they want to do. So they're like, they're, for the most part, pretty much all the native cultures consider skinwalkers to be evil, except for the Navajo, who think some of them are like neutral because they work for them, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think they are shapeshifters, Bubba. So, would you think they ever take on a Bigfoot persona?
Nope. I think if they tried to do that, the regular Bigfoot would deal with them very swiftly. So, no. There's other things that can shapeshift that can look like anything they want. They can either project an illusion into your mind to make you see them the way they want to, or they can physically make themselves look like something else. So just because something looks like Bigfoot doesn't necessarily mean it's Bigfoot. And there's other things that look similar to Bigfoot that are, as far as I know, flesh and blood things that are incredibly dangerous and hostile.
There's something that looks like Bigfoot that's incredibly dangerous and hostile?
Yeah, they're called the Gugwe. That's a type 3 from our classification, and they seem to be more of less of a human hybrid and more of a hybrid of like a baboon and something. They look like giant baboons without a tail, basically.
Where do you see those?
All over the East Coast and up into Canada. It's called the Gugwe, Micmac Confederation, the Penobsquat and Passamaquoddy tribes named them. But there's other tribes all over the continent that have names for them. If you go up into northern Minnesota, they call them the Tugwee over there.
Thank you, Bomber, for spelling that for us. I was just about to ask, but Bomber spelled that. Gugwe. Is that so? Okay, so you've got the Chupacabra, you've got the Gugwe, which I have never heard of. You've got the skunk ape. That's different, isn't it?
Now, you got to keep in mind that like every local area has their own name for Bigfoot.
Okay.
Because they've had sightings for 100 years or more. Some places almost 200 years. Oldest report I know goes back to 1827 in southern Georgia and northern Florida. So the report's going back that far. We got a report from Lake of the Woods just north of Minnesota up in Canada that goes back to the 1780s. And that one from the 1780s is a Gugwe. It's not a Bigfoot. So, the people have been interacting and known about these things are in their area for a long time. In every area, they got a different name for them. In Ohio, it's a grassman. In Florida, it's a skunk ape. Some of the mountain ranges, they got the howlers. They've got what else do they call them? Catamounts, and no heads, no necks, boogers. They got names for all different names for them. And then some of the local Indian names crept into their language, and you see that in some places too. So, no, that doesn't mean anything. They've all got different names for Bigfoot because Bigfoot was there before they called them Bigfoot.
Right.
The word Bigfoot wasn't termed until the 1950s. So what were they calling them before that? See, and that's the problem with a lot of these researchers doing archive work. Well, I can't find any returns on Bigfoot. Yeah, because until the 1950s, that term didn't exist. Try using wild man.
Well, how old is the word Sasquatch?
Very recent too. That's
Okay.
actually a mistranslation of the original term, which is Sasquatch. And it's a white man mistranslation of it. That's where the word Sasquatch came from.
What about Yeti?
Yeti, that's the, there's three different kinds of Yeti. They're over in the Himalayas. One of the types of Yeti is just your standard Bigfoot Sasquatch.
This is just like your 30 years of research. You're so knowledgeable. It's blowing my mind. Okay, so the Jersey Devil, though, and like Chupacabra, those are different creatures, right?
Yeah, those are Jersey Devil, 100% supernatural, if you go by the legend of where that thing came from. And Chupacabra, again, they lean toward, some kind of a supernatural weird thing. But the Chupacabra is very recent and could be just a creepy pasta story that got spread around too much and everybody started thinking there was such a thing. And, you can even look at, like, the difference between the Mexican Chupacabra is some kind of a little alien reptilian thing with a tail.
Uh-huh.
And then the Texas Chupacabra is like the Blue Point Chupacabra, which looks like a hairless dog. Sort of weird looking thing. So that they can't even keep their classification separate on these. You got two things that are from incredibly different phyla and in no possible way related that are getting the same name. And you can trace most of it back to an old creepy pasta story. So I tend to think that there is no such thing as a chupacabra.
Okay.
And if it does exist, it's a GMO government experiment that got away.
Sure. That I would believe in a heartbeat. Bubba News says, any idea why the mountain areas seem to have more sightings or experiences? Probably the trees, but you don't hear about these experiences on open prairie per se.
Yeah, well, they don't go out on the open prairie where you can spot them. It's too obvious. Places like down in New Mexico where Caveman and Brenda Harris do their research, you think of New Mexico and you're like, there's no way Bigfoot could be there. There's no forest. It's all wide open. Well, the northern part of the state actually has mountains and forests. But they're out in the other areas too, and where they see them is down by the river valleys. They follow the rivers around because there's riparian forest around all the rivers. So they just move around the rivers at night when there's nobody down there watching anything. And, so you find them there too.
Skookum Report says, happy birthday, Duke.
Hey, Skookum, thanks, bud.
And I so appreciate all the people from your channel that are hanging out. I think it's really awesome to come over here and be patient with my questions and patient with some of our questions because we aren't people who... Hang on just a second, Duke. I'm going to plug in my headphones. Everybody can still hear me, but they can't hear you for a second. But hold on. I shouldn't have to do that. I don't understand. Anyway, I appreciate everybody's patience with these questions, and Bomber makes a great point to check out Duke's channel. Yes, everybody, do check out his channel. Let me show it real quick. Since he mentioned it just now. World Bigfoot Radio is the channel on YouTube, and I do want to check out more stuff. It's just sometimes I also like to hear from the source himself, because
here's my selling point. In addition to the fact that you guys that didn't know who I was until a little bit ago have now heard me talk enough to go, gee, he must have done some research at some point. Well, my show isn't about me talking. It isn't about my guests talking. It's about showing the evidence.
Yes.
I have some of the best researchers on the continent on there, and they're showing actual Bigfoot pictures and video.
Yeah.
And, structures that are the size of skyscrapers that are not natural and humans couldn't make them. Yeah. And things like that leave you very little doubt in your mind. This is not imaginary. It is real.
That's right. And I could go back and do a lot of that and would even, and I have done some of that. So
let me give you a plug too for all of my followers that are the first timers here on Erin's wonderful channel. She does some really great shows too. She does some conspiracy theory shows. She's had Gary Wayne on, and actually he's going to be the next guest on again after me.
That's right.
And longtime followers of my show know I've had Gary on a couple times, and he's awesome. So you might want to pay some attention to Erin's channel because she puts out some really cool stuff.
Well, thanks for that. I give a lot of the glory to oh, is my phone... Can everybody hear me? I'm frozen.
Uh-oh.
Well, the OBS is frozen, but I think it's working. I can find out really quickly. Hang on. Let me see.
I've got you up inside here, but that's some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Until I can see what's currently
thanks
happening.
for that. It is working. The sound is working.
Okay.
It's just frozen. I just went to the video, but I do appreciate that shout out because it is a little bit different of a channel that I that I do. In that, I guess I don't have a huge following, but I do want to point to Jesus Christ first, and I do talk a lot about gold and silver because that's the business I'm in, and I do try to help people with that with that understanding of real tangible assets. But you get people like Gary Wayne on. I go on Zen Garcia's channel. I have a lot of different guests on that we may or may not even see eye to eye on, but they've got their own understanding. They've got their own ability to comprehend things that I just don't. And so it's been really fun to get such a diverse group of people. In the beginning, it was just me all the time. It was just me for the longest time, and I'm like, oh man, like, I hope people are interested, and they were. Praise the Lord, people were still interested in just what I had to say. But it's been so fun to meet so many different people and start to learn, and that's why one of the biggest reasons I asked you to come on is because I knew you could teach us in some of my community, and I know that there might even be people in your community that never ask these questions because you kind of jump in on a group of people that already know so much. Sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to ask. And so I'm willing to be the dumb one and ask the questions.
No, that's perfectly fine, dear, and that's one of the reasons that I don't mind being on your show and getting your audience up to speed on this because they probably don't know anything about this kind of stuff.
No, we don't ever talk about
it. Dave the Deliverer, I referenced him earlier, the guy that was professional deliverance ministry guy. He on one of my shows mentioned this, and it's kind of something people should keep in mind. Okay, some of you believe in the Bible, but you don't believe in Bigfoot. Some of you believe in Bigfoot, but you don't believe in the Bible.
Right.
And some of you believe in both of it, but you don't believe in the woo-woo. Well, I got news for you guys. That woo-woo stuff, that's all over in the Bible.
Yeah.
How can you not believe in the woo and believe in the Bible is basically what he was saying.
I think you're right about a lot of that. I think it answers a lot of questions to it. Now we all can differ in our opinion about where we think some of these creatures come from or what their bloodlines mean. But like you said, you can't prove it. There's no proof, but we can speculate.
I think your best reference on that. Make sure you catch your next show with Gary Wayne, because here's a guy that does connect a lot of the dots.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a lot of it 100% right.
I think so too, because every time he talks, it makes sense. It's not confusing. It doesn't, it might be mind blowing, but not over your head mind blowing. And if he can connect dots that make sense, that's how the truth is. It's easy to understand once you're open to truth. It's easy to understand and it makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, he's going to be.
Yeah, the simpler answer is usually the correct one. The more complicated, weird one is usually not the right one. Actually.
That's right. That's right. When it gets when it gets too complicated, that's when you're like, okay, wait, I'm gonna step away. And so when Gary comes on Friday, what we're actually going to be talking about is the origins of Christmas and some of the bloodlines with that. But the last time I had him on, I asked him to talk about the fairy bloodlines and the little people because of the episode I heard with you. I was so infatuated with what you guys were talking about. I'm like, I have to have him talk about that on my show now. So that was super fun.
That's why I named that episode How the Little People Are Connected to Everything. Because once I did enough research on it, it came to my attention that, wait a minute, these guys are like connected to everything. What's going on here with these little guys? Gary, I need you on my show now.
No kidding. And he's just, I like to have him on too because the book is so huge that he wrote the Genesis 6 conspiracy that I like him to just go over the chapters sometimes. So
yeah, and do you know that it's 800 pages? He had read the original version was 1,200. They made him take 400 out because it was too long.
Right, but yet do you know how many documents he has? He'll say, if you want a document on that, I'll send it to you. And by the way, I've gone, yeah, I want a document on that. Do you know how many pages his documents are? They're like 30 pages themselves.
He does good research. That's why Gary Wayne's one of the top guys on this whole thing. And anybody out there that's listening that doesn't know who Gary Wayne is and hasn't had any contact with him before, Aaron just referenced it. He's got a book called The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, which is absolutely spectacular. And it takes you from the beginning of time up until present and connects all the dots of all the conspiracies and all the foul, loathsome vermin that are trying to control our planet and ruin it. So you might want to get up to speed on that. It's heavily recommended. Gary does spectacular research, and it's in my top 5 list recommended books of all time.
Yeah, and that's why it's such a big book that it's fun for me to like to read a chapter or three, and then ask him to go over it live because
Yeah.
it's kind of like the see one, do one, teach one. Like I'll read it and then hear him talk about it, and then maybe I can repeat it after that. And because it's one thing to hear it and understand it, it's another thing to be able to like talk about it yourself because it's a lot of information, man. It's a lot.
Yeah. Like you said when he was on my show, you don't want to try and read his book all in one setting. Your head will explode.
Totally. Totally. Just cover a few chapters at a time, and he'll talk to anybody. Like anyone listening could just go email him on his website, genesis6conspiracy.com, and he would answer you and talk to you. He'd probably get on a phone. He loves to talk about this stuff. But just like you're when you have a knowledge and a passion, and same with me, like I love to talk about some of the technology stuff like the quantum computers and the black goo and the programmable matter. Like that's the stuff where I get all kind of excited and I can talk a lot for a long time about. When you have that knowledge and that passion, this isn't a job. This is fun. We love to share the information with anyone who has ears to hear.
Exactly. And let me make another recommendation on that Duke's top 5 book list. I don't know if you don't have one. You need to add this to your collection. And it's called The Hunt for Zero Point by Nick Cook.
Okay.
Nick Cook was an insider in the aerospace industry, writing for Jane's, which is like the the Bible for aerospace. So he had access to all these people that were up on the top stuff that was happening because his job was to go cover the latest cutting edge aerospace stuff. He started encountering this stuff that made him think that there was something else going on that people weren't really talking about. And it had to do with lifting bodies. Lifting bodies is the word that engineers and scientists use instead of anti-gravity.
Oh.
They don't want you to hear the word anti-gravity. No, it's a lifting body. Yeah. So anyway, they've had this lifting body technology since the Project Paperclip end of World War II, and they got all the Nazis into this country, and have been secretly working on it ever since. So if you guys want to know what most of the stuff that we're seeing in the skies over us that isn't made by aliens, but everybody thinks it is, no, go read The Hunt for Zero Point.
Okay.
That book was so groundbreaking that there's about 25 other books by other authors that are based on it. They used it as a springboard to do a little piece of research on something that he had put in the book and make an entire book out of it themselves. So he's been backed up over and over and over and over and over and over and over by lots of other very capable researchers and authors in different parts of the world that have taken this basic research and did their own research on it. I think one of them's got like 3 or 4 books out based on it, come to think of it.
Airborne Saint says, "Are we celebrating Bigfoot's birthday?" Well, I don't know that there's only one Bigfoot and that he's only got one birthday to celebrate. I think there's more than one, but my birthday was on the 8th and Duke's birthday is today, so it's Duke's birthday, and I started it off with a happy birthday song, so that was kind of fun.
And that was sweet. And, there are no doubt Bigfoot in North America whose birthday it is today. So happy birthday to the Sasquatch out there whose birthday it is today. Love you guys. Hope to see more of you this summer.
Yeah, so you don't camp out in the winter at all?
It's just, well, I've done winter camping. I spent one whole winter in a tent in the Rockies here like 5 years ago because we had a winter camp set up in an active area and we were trying to see how much actual activity there was. So at least one of us was out there every night, and that was until March. That was brutal. But generally, no, because they just don't move around very much. It's not worth doing. Up here where there's lots of snow and it's really cold, they get their little area that wherever they're going to stay the winter, and they kind of hunker down. They don't move around a whole lot.
Okay.
And they move seasonally too. During the summer, you find them up in the high mountains because it's colder, so it's more comfortable for them.
Yeah.
And then as too much snow and all the elk herd moves and everything, they follow the elk herd and they come down to the lower range, wherever it is that they're going to be during the winter, which is probably the southeast side of a mountain. Hint, hint.
Okay. Okay, well well, there's a lot for me to learn before I'm about to go out there and look for anything like that, to be honest. But by the time
you don't have to worry about it. You just show up and go to where I go usually.
Okay.
That's where they are.
And you did tell me that my bus could make it in a lot of those places.
Yep. Oh yeah. Especially if you get in one of those older buses with a nicer ground clearance and stuff, that more than likely would be what you're getting.
That
you
is
get
likely
in there easily because they got logging trucks going in and out of there. If you get a logging truck in and out, you get a bus in and out.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. I hope to have it done in a decent amount of time. And here's my prayer that as the bus gets started, which I am going to buy it. This has already pretty much been decided, unless the Lord comes, it just makes it so apparent. But I've been praying about this, so I think I'm supposed to do the bus. But I am praying that people will come into my life, and instances of like refurbished material will come into my life, that I will be a cheap and fast build, even though I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm hoping to get it done before winter, but even better, maybe with some time left in the end of summer, fall. But who knows? Some people, I've seen them build them really fast, and some people it takes them a couple years. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping to
Well,
be
like
a
I
quick
said,
learner.
for your purposes, all you need to do is gut the interior, so you can throw an air mattress down and you're good to go.
Well, I thought about that, but I also want to be able to cook, so I need to, you still need to prepare with some.
Right. Well, for if you're going to be up here camping with me, obviously we have cooking stuff going on,
Sure.
so that's kind of not really a concern.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make it to where I can do that stuff on the road too, somewhat. But it doesn't have to happen the
Yeah.
first year. Yeah, you're right. Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you don't have to have anything in the interior put together in order to use it for a shell to keep the rain off of
Yeah.
you. And there's your tent. You don't need to bring one with and set it up.
totally.
You drive your tent there.
That's right.
And that gives you an extra layer of protection. So
That's
you won't
right.
have the Bigfoot shaking your tent or anything. They'll tap on the side of your bus and they'll scare you that way.
They'll
instead.
just scratch
Or they'll
on the
shake
windows.
bus. They'll shake the bus a little bit. I'll ask them to shake the bus for you.
Oh,
so.
thanks. That won't terrify me at all.
They won't do that. Well, I shouldn't say they won't. They probably won't do that. The ones up there where we go are really polite and like almost politer than most of the ones that people seem to run into and interact with, because some of them, if you leave any kind of food out or anything, they'll take it. And these ones, yeah, we've left like, a dozen donuts in a box out on the camp table, and they're in camp. We've got recordings of them being there 45-minute walking around. You can hear them. They even tap the sound recorder. They didn't take any of the donuts.
Oh, donuts are nasty, man.
Yeah, apparently from their standpoint, donuts are nasty, so we don't have to worry about them stealing our donuts.
But you can fish. You can catch fish with donuts. We've done it, me and my kids. It's hilarious.
That could be why they think our donuts are ick, because there's lots of little streams with fish up there, so they don't eat donuts anyway. They can
Yeah.
just get yummy fish.
Well, we found out one day just for fun, because this one kid, we were at a pond and he couldn't catch anything, and we had these donuts and the ducks were going crazy for him, so we threw a donut on his fishing line and he caught like 3 fish back to back to back.
That's a neat trick. I'll have to remember that one.
Yeah. I was surprised by it
that would
too.
never work for Homer Simpson. He'd eat all the bait before it ever
Yeah.
digested.
Yeah, well, it would have never occurred to me, except for the kid was just sitting there with this worm and he was looking all sad, and I'm like, try a donut, and I couldn't believe it. Fish after fish. So yeah, there you go. Donuts for fishing, guys. Forget the tackle. Just forget the flies.
I've heard other things like that. Somebody was using those, what is it, Cartman likes, those cheesy poofs, those little round
Oh
poof,
yeah.
orange. Yeah, they were
Gross.
using them for bait, and apparently the fish were loving those things too.
You could put that as your bob and then have your hook hanging down from it.
That would probably work.
Yeah,
It
that's
for a
what
while.
I was just thinking. Oh, yeah. Well, we've turned into a fishing show. Look at us. We went from Bigfoot to fishing show.
Well, there's fishing up here in Montana too.
That's
I just
right.
had Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio saying he wants to go, do some bass fishing, and can you do any bass fishing here? And I said, nah, it's all trout.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's all we got around here. And I said, well, in most parts of the country, people whine because they don't have any trout to catch.
Yeah.
And we get to whine because we don't have any bass to catch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's selective, but you get some beautiful big old rainbow trout if you get to a nice big lake, which there's plenty of them.
Well, actually, if you go over in western Montana, there's salmon over there too. So
yes,
the northern part.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, AJ Blunt just came in and said, "What's going on here?" AJ, we're kind of wrapping up our Bigfoot birthday special, where Duke here just informed us a lot, and not even, it's probably just the tip of the iceberg about Bigfoot and other creatures that could fall in a similar category. So my question to you, Duke, is, would you be willing to come back again on my channel sometime?
Sure, no problem. Just let me know when you want to have me back on again. Hopefully, we won't have the computer crash next time.
Well, it's okay. I made it work. I didn't think it was going to be possible, but what I realized is I can just hold the phone up to my microphone, like you saw my headset. So I'm just holding the phone up to that. But after a while, my hand is like cramping. So yeah, we're going to have to.
Hopefully, we can rig up a better system next time. But sure, I'd be happy to be on the show again.
At least
and before we go, can I get everybody to do a little prayer?
Yes. Please.
Okay. Everybody, get your concentration cap on, get in your little tabernacle, and here we go. Lord Jesus, please bless everybody in this audience that's been listening to this show. Open their eyes so that they can see that you're the real leader of the world, not that jerk that apparently has control of it temporarily, and that we all need to follow you and follow your guidance. And Lord, we especially pray that during this time of chaos in our country, that your forces will prevail and that we will have a peaceful and stable country again without excessive bloodshed. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I appreciate that. That is awesome. I love when somebody wants to take the reins and be a prayer warrior, and I so appreciate it. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you know me, I just got more courage and common sense. I'll always open up my mouth and sometimes put my foot in it halfway too.
Yeah, but you're a blessing, and I love having conversations with you. So, any last comments you want to make about the birthday Bigfoot special before I let you on with the rest of your night?
No, just remind everybody to give Erin's channel a chance. Check out her stuff. You go back and look at some of her back catalog. She's got some really interesting stuff there. And for all my fans, I'm going to have 109 Part 2 out this coming week, hopefully Wednesday, so you guys can see some more of the most ridiculously gigantic tree structures you've ever seen in your life, and a lot of tracks too. So that's coming up.
Don't miss it. Don't miss it, guys. Be there or be square. And somebody said you should go back and read the chat, so they thought you might get a kick out of some of the chat that went on.
I love all you guys. Yeah, thanks for everybody that showed up. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure Erin enjoys having some new people checking out her channel too.
Thank you so much, Duke, and I look forward to having you back again soon, okay? You have a blessed evening.
All right. Yep, God bless everybody out there, and have a wonderful Christmas and peaceful and blessed New Year.
Peace and love of the Lord. Good night.
Night.
All right, guys, join us Friday for Gary Wayne on the origins and bloodlines of Christmas. You're not going to want to miss that. The man is brilliant, and he's going to teach us a lot of stuff. I'll see you guys then. Peace and love of the Lord. Good night.
That I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but you remain so good, and you never change. You love me still in the perfect way. You stay always so good, and you have pulled me out from the save me from certain death. You have shown yourself faithful to me over and over, Jesus. So let my life glorify you and teach me to walk beside you. And I want to be more like you. So let my life be one marked by right here with you is where I want to be, 'cause you remain so good. Yes, you never change. You love me still in the perfect way. You stay always so good. You have pulled me out from the depths. You have saved me from certain